Hey everybody, I have talked about this in other videos, but it's a really important topic. And I know I've approached it in different angles. And it might even seem like I'm not consistent from one video to the other. That's okay. So pay attention to this video more than all the others. I've asked this question before about what is a faithful Christian school. And I want to talk about it again. I wrote an article and I presented it at Concordia Theological Seminary, Fort Wayne, a number of years ago, and received some pretty good feedback about it. But they were what I called features of fidelity in Christian education. Features of fidelity in Christian education. And basically, what I found when I was doing the study and the preparation for that presentation, and I did include it in my Faithful and Flourishing book as well, was that if you're going to be faithful to your mission and you're going to be faithful to your Christian confession as a Christian school, you really have to pay attention to at least 7 key categories in your school. And I'm going to just kind of talk through those. I have them outlined here in front of me. So the first one is the confession and the conduct of the leadership. And by the way, these aren't in no particular order. I didn't sort of put them in order of importance, like this is the absolute most important to the least important. They're all important and they're interconnected in different ways. So it's hard to just rate and rank them in a overly formal way. But the confession and the conduct of the leadership, it's really hard to have a Christian school that's faithful and flourishing whenever your leaders are, they embrace a core set of beliefs and values that clash with your school's reason for existence. And that's going to show up. The decisions that are made, the policies that those leaders influence, the messages internally and externally that are communicated, all of that is going to begin to clash, and something is going to give. Either those leaders are going to be removed or those leaders are going to reshape the school in their own image. And so faithful and flourishing Christian schools have leaders who come on board and they understand, they have the assignment. They know the assignment. They know the reason why the school exists. They embody that. They embrace that. They have that shared confession, and they are committed to not making a school in their own image, but to actually try to make decisions, to promote, to set goals, to promote agendas and priorities that align with the stated purpose for the school, and that align with the vision, with the vision for where they want to go as a school. And as a school leader, I will tell you, there are times at schools, every school where I've worked and I've led, there have been times where there may be some aspect of the school's philosophy or approach that is not my personal philosophy. Like, I can get pretty radical on certain things. I, for example, don't like letter grades. I mean, letter grades didn't exist for most of the history of Christian education in Christian schools, and I think that they're pretty useless, and they're not particularly valuable. I think we could actually build a much stronger Christian school that's more reflective of biblical principles and what we want to accomplish without letter grades. But I don't promote that agenda in the schools that I lead that have already kind of settled on that. And that's where they are. Now, I might bring up the conversation at times, and maybe I'll try to champion some of the reasons why I take that position. I'll let those kind of shine through. I don't want us to become a school that's just a culture of earning grades and not a culture of really deep, rich, meaningful, authentic learning that believes that truth matters. And truth and beauty and goodness are fundamental. Like, those are not letter grade concepts, right? So, there are aspects of that view that I have about letter grades that will show up at times. But my purpose for being a leader at a Christian school is not to come into a school and say, I want to turn this into a letter gradeless school because that's what Bernard Bull likes. It's not about my likes, right? And that's this principle about a faithful and flourishing Christian school is you have leaders who have a shared confession. They're on board with the mission. They're on board with the assignment. They know where the school's going, and they want to be a part of making that happen. And that's really key. The second one is the confession, conduct, and scholarship of the teachers and of the faculty. Are they, and a lot of K-12 teachers aren't necessarily doing scholarship in terms of like what professors do at a university like where I am. But they have interests. There are topics that they're interested in. They're exploring, they're learning, they're doing lifelong learning, professional development and growth and so forth. Many are going to grad school and the like. And so if you want to be a faithful and flourishing Christian school and a high impact Christian schools, you have faculty who have a shared confession. They understand the shared commitments to conduct and how we're going to carry ourselves in this particular school and environment. And their educational philosophy and academic interests align with, amplify, support the mission, the purpose of the school, the philosophy of the school, and where it's going. That's really critical. If you don't have that, then you have these kind of competing. You have faculty that are competing with one another, and students are experiencing a kind of philosophical and educational whiplash. They're going from place to place. Doesn't mean you can't have teachers that have different styles and approaches and some philosophical differences and things like that. But there have to be some things that they have in common, and the students see it and feel it and experience it, and there's a cohesiveness that comes about this commonality that the faculty have. A third one is the curriculum. That a feature of fidelity is that you're actually examining the curriculum and asking whether or not it is taking you on the journey that you intend, a journey that's in alignment with your stated mission. The word curriculum comes from the Latin for a kind of a race course. A curriculum is a course that you're having the students run. It's a journey you're taking them on, and some roads don't lead to particularly happy places. You know, there's a passage in the scriptures that's really good and fundamental for us. It's whatever is true and honorable and just, or whatever is pure and lovely and commendable. If there's anything excellent or worthy of praise, think about those things, right? So we want to have a curriculum that's grounded in those kinds of things, or the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Those are really good things. Those are lasting, persistent virtues that we want to talk about, that should show up in our curriculum. It should be those should be experienced. The classic concepts of truth, beauty, and goodness align very well with the passage I just described from Philippians 4:8 about what's true and honorable and just and so forth. And so curriculum is really important. People are taking some time and thinking about it seriously, not just picking something because, oh, Christian Publishing House, let's just put out and it fits. No, we think about these with intentionality. The fourth one is the extent to which the shared confession informs the policies, practices, procedures, rituals, activities, and decisions. So is what we believe a key factor in informing what we do, how we do it, why we do it? Across the board, all over the place. That's one of the questions that's asked. A next one, so that was 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one is then the extent to which there is tangible evidence of a strong and persistent relationship with the sponsoring denomination, one that includes accountability, trust, and mutual benefits. Now, I know some Christian schools are non-denominational and so forth, but what I would say is this: is if you have association churches or others, that a feature of fidelity is oftentimes that the school is not just kind of some island on its own. It's not just sort of floating on its own, independent. It is part of a larger shared Christian confession and group of other believers. They have some things they have in common, and that there's a shared accountability and there's trust that's built. If it's a specific denomination that you're actually building, and it's a two-way thing, and you're actually giving up some freedom to be in relationship. That's how it works. That you have responsibilities to one another, you have loyalties to one another, you have responsibility to support, pray for, care for, encourage one another, and you have a shared confession that you hold together, and you hold that valuable. It's not just sort of just trust us to do our own thing. And no, there should be a accountability. Accountability is an important biblical principle, and it exists. That's why even in the early church, there's something called a visitation. That the Apostle Paul, you look at the epistles, and some of the epistles are part of a visitation process, or you'll see their references in the epistles where the Apostle Paul would visit a church in a community, and he would learn things about them in advance. That's where some of the epistles were actually giving them encouragement and correction and guidance. And then he would come and he would do teaching, and he would that visitation, there was a kind of pastoral care component. That there was accountability involved, there was encouragement involved. That is what it's like to do life together in a body of Christ. And being part of a denomination can be really, really helpful, and part of a shared confession with a group. And I will tell you that the schools that don't have some kind of external accountability to a denomination or a church body, they tend to change over time. They tend to change their mission and their identity over time if they don't have some external entity, a group of congregations or part of association or something. Then it becomes kind of, unfortunately, it's too easy to become kind of a cult of the present personalities in leadership at the organization. And as people change, the mission, the philosophy changes. And that's really a weak sign for an organization, where an organization is entirely dependent upon just one personality to ensure that it's staying faithful. The next is the confession and conduct of the students. While you can have schools that are more missional and reaching out to people outside of the church, and others that are serving more people in the church, and others a combination of the two, that the students do play a role in enacting the mission and living it out, and that can't be disregarded. And that's an important factor for thinking about fidelity and what does it look like. And then the last one is the extent to which the school continues to operate in a way that the people deem aligned with its initial mission. And that goes back to something I've said in multiple videos, is it internally consistent with its stated mission, its reason for existence? Or does it just kind of run around after enrollment or financial support or whatever else it might be? Enrollment and financial support are absolutely critical, very, very important. But it becomes really dangerous when people are just running after things to keep the doors open. Because you kind of lose your reason to keep the doors open if you do that, and you don't have a kind of stated purpose and a mission that's really grounding as you go through joys and challenges. That's all I have for you on this one. We'll keep going in future episodes.